And greetings. Happy, what day is it? Wednesday. They're all kind of beginning to run together now. It's been an interesting week already. I am Steve Deace. He is Todd Erzin. He is Aaron McIntyre. And you are you. And we welcome you to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand here on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast. Let us know what you think about what we think. Steve at stevedeace.com is how you can email the program. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. And if you're looking for alternatives to those censoring platforms, look for Steve Deace on Parler, Gab, and MeWe. Are we back up on YouTube?
We are indeed.
We are. All right. So you can get clips of the show on youtube.com/Steve Deace or rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. Now that we are, for now, out of YouTube jail, but I would anticipate
very soon
that won't last very long, which is why you want to take advantage of a discounted subscription today. When you go to blazetv.com/Deace, you not only get to make sure at a discount that you get all of our content uncensored, directly delivered to you from us, but also you get bonuses like the Overtime. That's the mini bonus exclusive episode that we do for Blaze TV subscribers each day. We'll record it after today's program. I don't know what the topic is. It's something Todd and Aaron are springing on me that they want my reaction to cold. So if you want to know what that reaction is, you'll find out what today's Overtime is about the same time I will at blazetv.com/Deace. Of course, we should begin by saying thank you. Our production team is going to really yell at me because of this glare. Let's see if I can fix that there. Sorry. All right. We just got these here at the last minute, trying to make do with what we have here at the studio. But yesterday, in the middle of the show, I mean, we were astonished to hit the top 10 overall at Amazon.com with Fauci and Bargain, our new book, The Most Powerful and Dangerous Bureaucrat in American History. And in the middle of the show, we went even higher and got up to number 3. And I mean, we were just beside ourselves, you know, and I'm at home yesterday afternoon. I'm doing something in the other room, and my wife starts yelling at me, "Hey, you're number 1." And I'm like, "Hey, if you've been married for a long time, sometimes your wife tells you you're number 1, if you know what I'm saying, bro. You know what I mean? Okay." But no, this was a different finger. Okay. And I'm like, no way. And yeah, something I think symbolic, suitable, proper that we spent the rest of the day yesterday battling a bunny book. There's just something about that just seems to be so on brand for the times in which we live.
There's a Monty Python joke in there somewhere.
Yes. We ended up battling a bunny book all day and night last night for the number 1 book in America, according to Amazon, which is where 83% of all books in America are sold. Todd asked me yesterday, "Man, how many books are we selling?" I'm like, I don't know. All I know is today it's more than anybody else. Whatever that number is, I don't know. I just know it's more than anybody else. And I have not even shared this with the two of them yet, but I got emotional yesterday. You know, it was just about a year ago that, I mean, I was convinced that I got up one morning, went downstairs. I said this to my wife. I came in that morning. I said this to the two of you. And I said, I think this is the moment we're here for. I think that I'm born to a 15-year-old mom for right now. And whatever platform I have, whatever credibility I have built, I am to leverage it all on what is going on in this country right now. Put it all in, go all in, put everything on the line. And, you know, it probably wasn't until late April that I stopped doubting myself, because you start thinking, I mean, is it just really me and a handful of other people out there with platforms, and the rest of the country's wrong It can't be like that. You know what I'm saying? And then you start thinking, you know what, we're talking about people's families, children, my own family, my own children, not something you want to be wrong about. And boy, you can be wrong about this, right? Like you can be Dick Morse and you can be, somebody on Fox or another network guaranteeing people that so-and-so is going to win the next election. And after that disappointment of that result not happening blows over, you can come back. If you're wrong about this, you're never coming back. And we just made the decision. I made the decision to put everything we have done here up until this point, pardon me, put it all on the line for this, that this was the all-in moment for us as a culture. And day after day, we did the same shows, how many times, the same talking points, the same data points. And, you see an uptick in stuff in your social media traffic and email, but then you're also getting shadow banned. And sometimes you feel like, am I talking to myself here? We don't have by ourselves. What's funny is the publicity for the book is just now kicking in. The push that the Blaze is giving it with its lists. Senator Cruz yesterday, the push that he gave it. Sean Davis at the Federalist has given it several pushes. I'm going to forget some names. Michael Knowles at the Daily Wire. The publicity that we have in store is just now kicking in. Glenn Beck was the only show I did yesterday, and you can sell a lot of books with Glenn. You can get movie deals when you get your book on Glenn's show, I found out, but we've never reached number one overall. I don't know how many people ever have. We're just now getting ready to do a lot of publicity for the book, some of which we're very excited about later tonight. And to see this go number one before all of that even kicks in, I just want to say thank you. It's harder to do this than I probably let on, just because I'm wired. I'm just so task oriented. I'm wired to finish the race. I kind of have that Jesse Ventura, I ain't got time to bleed from Predator in me. I'm not one to get down rabbit trails. Once I'm focused on something, I see it through to the end, for better or for worse. But there are plenty of times, man, when I'm just by myself at night playing Rory McIlroy golf or Madden football or MLB The Show, and you're just like, this isn't making any kind of difference at all. Is there a return on investment for what you take doing what we do? And both via some phenomenal endorsements. I've told you before, I've met Ron DeSantis once in a hallway at CPAC 7 years ago for 10 minutes. Don't know him at all. I know some people close to him. We hoped he would review it, give us an endorsement. Got down to the last day, right before the deadline. Looked like it wasn't going to come through. And then he delivered a dynamite endorsement way beyond what we even asked. Stuff like that. There's been times in the past I've been pretty critical of Rand Paul. I thought those were deserved criticisms at the time. He was the first big name that signed on to endorse this project when asked. And then there's the rest of you. How many emails I have received from people. I bought 5. I bought 10. We originally brought this to paperback just because it was the only way we could get it to market this fast. And as a friend of mine told me this morning, from a business model standpoint, it turned out to be a stroke of genius because it made it affordable for you folks to buy multiple copies and give them to people you know. And, I feel a little bit like this is some kind of like a Dan's bake sale moment for our show, if you get the analogy. I mean, we didn't do a lot of this. We produced the content, but we don't have the platform to take a book to #1 overall on Amazon. There are a few people in the United States, frankly, who do. This is all organic. This is just all a God thing, a you thing, some phenomenal endorsements, and then people who didn't just give us blurbs, but went the extra mile because they believed in what we were trying to do with the book. And I'm rambling here, but I just, before we did anything else today, we're going to do buy, sell, or hold. Daniel Horowitz is going to join us. It's going to seem like a somewhat normal show on a Wednesday. Pardon me again, because I'm kind of getting a little choked up again, but I've gotten a lot of emails over the years from a lot of you about how much our show has encouraged you. And I just wanted to tell all of you yesterday, you were an encouragement to me. Sometimes it feels like you're tilting at windmills with a toothbrush. If you remember the old Saturday Schoolhouse Rock version of Don Quixote, sometimes it feels like you're beating your head against a wall. And yesterday it felt like the truth broke through. We used to have this debate on our show a couple of years ago. Do our people want Cheez-Its or steak? Remember, we spent a year having that dialogue with various people. And yesterday, steak, medium rare, right off the grill, baby. A big, fat ribeye. One. And we couldn't do that by ourselves. We're not big enough to just put something out and have it go at that level. 48 hours ago, our publishers told us they'd be ecstatic if we reached the top 50. They were blown away 24 hours ago when we debuted at 24. They were beyond speechless when we hit #1. I won't share everything they told us, but they gave us a list of several big names, people whose platforms we couldn't hold their jock straps. They couldn't get #1 overall on Amazon. So thank you. Because this book isn't just a lament or like a manifesto of our personal thoughts or some creative work even that maybe has meaning like the last book we did. This is different. I mean, this is a reference, and it's a concordance to get your lives back, to get our way of life back. And all of you made this happen. Yeah, we did the content, but you're the reason why we didn't just do this amongst ourselves. You didn't take this thing to the next level. You took it to the top floor. And I'm forever in your debt. And I want to thank all of you. And be satisfied in knowing this. A lot of important people, a lot of decision makers, a lot of cultural influencers that are trying to lead us over the cliff as a people got up yesterday, or their agents, or their representatives, or their managers, and did their daily look at the bestseller list and thought to themselves, who the bleep is Steve Deace? What the hell is this? And yeah, the big media, the legacy media that's been lying for these people for the last year and still is, they're ignoring us too. You know why? I think it was Solzhenitsyn who said, we know that they're lying. They know that we know that they're lying. And we know that they know that we know that they're lying. And yet they lie anyway. Take satisfaction in their indifference. Take satisfaction in their ignoring of you. That is the ultimate endorsement that they know they have to lie. They cannot win. Let's continue to let the truth out. Too often in America these last few years, we haven't been willing to let the truth have its way. Maybe just once. Let's trust the truth and let's see what happens. Thank you for doing the heavy lifting here. You've done it. And letting the truth out. And now here's Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by more gaslighting. CNN continues to air clips from a documentary on the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. This time, they aired clips jabbing Stanford's Dr. Scott Atlas.
Dr. Scott Atlas, his perspective was, in my view, allowed him to ill-inform a lot of people, and as a consequence, it kind of negated Dr. Birx's, Dr. Fauci's, Dr. Redfield's, Dr. Hahn's voice.
He thought as you could protect the vulnerable and let sort of the well build up this herd immunity. And Dr. Birx and I and the rest of the doc said this is a fallacy.
In response, Dr. Atlas went on Fox News.
Never fit in there. These people don't know truth if it hit them in the head. It's incredible what we're seeing here. You're blaming people for criticizing what was done, and those were the people, these people on your show, who wanted what was done. They ought to look in the mirror and they ought to go on TV and apologize. If they think 500,000 people died, they were the cause of the policy. They recommended the policy that was done.
Kamala Harris displayed once again her curious laughing tick. This time she laughs about parents amid school closures.
More parents are seeing the value of educators when they had to bring their kids and said, we're not paying them nearly enough.
Moving on, the suspect in a brutal random assault of an Asian woman in New York City has been identified. New York police say the 65-year-old Asian woman was stomped and told, quote, "You don't belong here," while she was on her way to church. The suspect was identified as 38-year-old Brandon Elliott, a felon who was out on parole after stabbing his mother to death in the Bronx in 2002. Learning Chinese today, today's phrase is, how many blocks away from Black Lives Matter Avenue was this?
这是距离布莱克生活物质大道有几个街区。
And now for some whiplash, the narrative of the so-called January 6th Capitol insurrection continues to crumble. Here's this from the Associated Press. Prosecutors struggle with consistent story in January 6th cases. The story outlines the assertions and quick backtracking federal prosecutors have engaged in since January 6th, including the notion that the event was pre-planned for weeks. Quote, in one case, prosecutors declared in court documents in January that there was strong evidence the pro-Trump mob aimed to capture and assassinate elected officials. The Justice Department quickly clarified it had no such evidence, blaming it on a miscommunication between prosecutors, end quote. A new commercial from the nonprofit conservative advocacy organization Tennessee Stands really cuts to the quick regarding mask mandates.
This is the face of compliance.
I comply to avoid confrontation.
I look like a good person on Facebook.
I comply because my friend said so.
I comply because I'm owned by my union.
I comply because they threatened to close my business.
I comply because I hate doing research.
It's time for all Tennesseans to shut up and comply. And even after you inject the vaccine, we will keep shaming you until you mask up. Comply, because we told you to.
Some new research from Gallup shows fewer than half of U.S. adults belong to a church, synagogue, or mosque. That's the first time Gallup's survey on the matter has dropped below 50% since they started tracking attendance back before 1940. More classroom craziness once again in Loudoun County, Virginia, where a woke teacher bullied a student for not being racist. For those of you listening, the teacher, during an online class, asked students to spot the difference in a picture of two women standing shoulder to shoulder. One student wasn't having any of it.
Tell me what this seems to be a picture of.
It's just two people chilling.
Right, just two people. There's nothing more to this picture?
Nah, not really. Just two people chilling.
I don't believe that you believe that. I don't believe that you look at this as just two people. I don't think
truly is just two people, though, is it not?
Yeah, but I think you're being intentionally coy about what this is a picture of.
What would I be being coy about? It's two people standing back to back in a picture.
Yeah, and that's all you see is two people.
I'm confused on what you would like me to speak on in that sense.
I don't think you are. I don't know why you do this. I'm not trying to call you out, but you come out off of mute to talk about what this is a picture of, and you act as if there's nothing noticeable about this apart from the fact that they're two people.
Well, I'm confused. Are you trying to get me to say that there are two different races in this picture?
Yes,
is that what you want me to say? Well, at the end of the day, wouldn't that just be feeding into the problem of looking at race instead of just acknowledging them as two normal people?
No, it's not, because you can't look at the people and not acknowledge that there are racial differences, right?
South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, who recently de facto vetoed a bill banning dudes who feel pretty from competing against your daughters on sports teams, signed a pair of executive orders on Monday banning biological males from competing on women's sports teams. Check out how CNN described the executive orders. Quote, the orders also reference biological sex, a disputed term that refers to the sex as listed on students' original birth certificates. It's not possible to know a person's gender identity at birth, and there's no consensus criteria for assigning sex at birth, end quote. In Arkansas, the state passed a ban on doctors performing so-called gender transition surgeries on youth. Of course, the way the media covered it, like you can see in this headline from Business Insider, is that the bill bans all health care for quote-unquote trans youth. And finally, this headline from the Babylon Bee. Arkansas passes controversial bill to ban chopping off kids' legs if they think they're a mermaid. And that's what happened while we were away.
Aaron's Montage brought to you by our friends over at Rough Greens. You know, we've been telling you about them for quite a while now. It's this little powder you sprinkle on your pet's food that gives them the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients they're likely missing from the food you bought them at the store, because just like they do with the human food, it's stripped of all that good stuff in order to be mass-produced, consumed, and distributed. Same thing happens with the pets' foods as well. Thankfully, though, they've got their own supplement, Rough Greens. It's a powder. You put it in the food they love, mix it in. Our dog Kappa loves this, but maybe you're concerned. Maybe our dog won't like it. All right, so how about we just give you a bag for free to find out? Just go to roughgreens.com. You will just pay the shipping. The first bag on us, just to see if your pet loves it as much as our dog Cap does. When you go to roughgreens.com, just pay the shipping, first bag for free. Or call them at 833-ROUGH-DOG. And again, that's RUFF, roughgreens.com, 833-ROUGH-DOG. Let's get to the montage. When we believe on our show, doesn't mean we won't walk and chew gum and diversify our portfolio. But when we believe we have successfully driven a stake through the heart of this flat earth, junk science, voodoo rain dance, yesterday in Nevada, for the first time since last March. Now, what's Nevada? Like a statewide desert mostly, right?
Yeah, very warm, lots of sun.
Yesterday in Nevada, or actually I'm getting my days mixed up. It was Monday, so 2 days ago. I keep forgetting today's Wednesday. So 2 days ago, Monday, this week in Nevada, was the first time outdoors in a statewide desert that you could play basketball at a park since last March. And yet, the casinos have been open for months. By the way, we're concerned about a respiratory virus. What indoor activity takes place in a casino that you almost can't do indoors anywhere else in America? Would you guys happen to know what that is?
The long darts.
That's right, man. Just burning those heaters to the ground. You could burn heaters to the ground in the casinos in Nevada for the last several months. But this week was the first time you could go outdoors and play basketball at a park in a desert. Since last March. I mean, you almost just can't, you couldn't make this stuff up. When we are successful, we dropped the house on the witch yesterday, but we're not quite yet singing Ding Dong, the witch is dead. But once we are confident that it is time to fire that mantra up, we're going to do to this racialist agenda what we've done to COVID stand for the last year. This crap needs to end. That video of that white mangina lecturing that black dude about what he sees in the picture, are you freaking kidding me? No, he's not. Why? Because what we do on this show is smash your idols and shibboleths of the damned. So once we're done sending the Branch Covidians to Hail Bop, we're going after the racialist cult next. Mark my words. Mark it down. Also alerting our social media team, because if we weren't getting banned enough already, rest assured, once we go there, we'll be banned from everywhere forever. Because this even topples COVID stand, as we saw with the 47 funerals, and peaceful protests for a dude who once pointed a gun at a pregnant woman's mom last year. Those were totally permitted to go on. COVID Stan was like, we think that's fine. So once we finish off COVID Stan, this one's next. Because if your blood isn't boiling and I don't care what color of skin you have, where you live, headline, man on parole for killing his mom. Ends up almost beating an Asian woman to death. Hell no. Hell no. No. Nope. No.
And would anybody be surprised if he's on parole because he was let out because of COVID?
No. Probably not. Probably wouldn't be surprised. No more, isn't it great that Kim Kardashian likes our public policy tweets. Sorry if that hurts your clicks. But nope. When we're done with this, when we finish off what is left of COVID Stan, we're coming to you next. This is beyond disgusting, and it has to stop. This also will rot to the core of a country, tear us apart at a granular, molecular level. And if you have any form of conscience whatsoever, and you are a contributor or work for CNN, you should resign in protest to that statement. I've already told you, man. We go trainee madness around here. We go gender dysphoria around here. Fire up the John Bon Jovi, Blaze a Glory. And I'm naming names on the way out. And burning down as much of conservative media as I can on the way down. And I'm totally fine with it. Let alone the network of Malaysian airliners and Don Lemon. If you aren't on that network today saying, I appreciate that question, I got to address, there's no way, we printed an article, so there's no way of knowing, there's no consensus of knowing a biological sex at birth. What the hell is that? You're not calling that out? No, I don't watch CNN. I don't have any clue how many people of conscience still live or still work there. I have no idea. Rick Santorum's still on over there, do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. I have no idea if he's drawing a paycheck from them or not. He might even be the only one. I don't know. But no. Nope. That's not a news network, as our friends at MRC are fond of saying. That is a nefarious enterprise. And you should be ashamed to be associated with it. You should be. You know what it is, guys? Here's what it is. I don't have any nerves left. I'm tired of watching my way of life drift away. And I'm just going to unleash at every opportunity, basically. That's really what we're going to do here.
I'm in.
Okay, I'm just beyond tired. I'm tired of being tired. And I don't know, works for Tucker Carlson to unleash on these people. He's got the most watched show in the history of cable news. So commenso festival. You should resign. If you have any moral conscience at all and you're at CNN, you should resign. Or at least use your platform on that network to call them into account for that complete pagan, anti-American, anti-science, ridiculous, wicked, evil psychobabble. We'll play buy, sell, or hold next. Say your credit card company finds suspicious charges on your card. This has happened with us. They will often contact you, even cover it in advance, with identity theft these days. But the type of fraud you really need to be concerned about is the kind that your mortgage lender and homeowner's insurance won't cover, and that's called home title theft. That's why you need Home Title Lock, because cyber criminals know that they can get to you with our home title documents, often kept online these days. They can go there, forge your signature on a quick claim deed stating you've sold your home to them so that they can then borrow money, liquidate all of your equity, leave you in debt, stick you with the payments. Often you don't find out about it until late payment notices or worse begin showing up in the mail. The instant, though, that Home Title Lock detects any tampering with your home's title, they will mobilize to shut it down. So let's get you protected right now. Go to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you've been tampered with and you don't even know it yet. And then while you're there, enter the code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. That's the code RADIO for 30 free days of protection at HometitleLock.com. Really quick, there was an item in your montage I have to mention before we get to buy, sell, or hold. Who was the Tennessee group that put that ad out, did you say?
Tennessee Stands.
I mean, that...
It's right in your face.
Yeah, when we say the answer is us, that's how it's done, son. That ad is good. The cross-section of people, the talking points... Man, I love Nashville. I love Tennessee. It's one of my new relocation mistresses. It's just such pretty country. And it's far enough north that you can get a little taste of winter around Christmas when you really want it. And then the rest of the time you just kick to the curb when you hate it, right? But Tennessee, we see you. That's how it's done. That ad, I'd not seen that. But very impressed. Very impressed. All right, let's get to buy, sell, or hold. Each week, our producer, Aaron, with some help from his friends in the audience, will put forth for Todd and I a series of predictions, positions, what have you. No topic is off limits. We will decide, are we buying that? Are we selling that? Hopefully, we'll have at least one good reason why. And of course, Buy, Sell, or Hold is brought to you by Omega XL. If you're struggling with inflammation in the body, not injury, if you got an injury, go see a doctor if you haven't already. But if you're doing the inflammation thing, what's that look like? You know, that chronic pain, stiffness, achiness in the joints, places like the back, neck, knees, shoulders. For me, it's a left hip flexor. That's where a product like Omega XL comes in. It goes further than those topical rubs and pain relievers. They'll help you mask the pain, but you want to confront the inflammation that's causing it before it causes something even more serious. Backed by 35 years of clinical research, Omega XL can help you do exactly that. It's part of my daily regimen, and we want to get you started with a buy one, get one free offer right now. Buy one bottle, get a second one for free when you visit omegaxl.com/Steve. That's omegaxl.com/Steve, or call them at 800-844-4888. 800-844-4888. Aaron.
Alrighty, we will begin with at Adcone, who says there will be a DC Marvel crossover movie within the next 5 to 8 years, possibly an Avengers versus Justice League story.
Buy.
Tell me why you're going to buy.
It's such low-hanging fruit, and I buy conditionally that this thing that you enjoyed and many people is a genuine turnaround for DC. Because if DC is just not getting its act together, Marvel's not going to hitch its wagon to it necessarily. But if they're both doing well, then that's the next logical step, I think.
Sell. You're right. The reason I'm going to sell, though, is both properties, both companies that own those properties now have their own streaming services. Oh, my gosh. And I mean, I think that's the future. Here's the one way I think it could happen is if my prediction that they're purposefully trying to tank the theater industry. Right? So basically 3 companies, Regis, AMC, and Cinemark own most of the movie theaters in America. All right. You may have a family-owned theater or a chain of family-owned theaters like we do here in Iowa with the Fridley family. But by and large, those 3 companies own most of the theaters in America you want to go to. And AMC has been flirting off and on with bankruptcy before we had COVID shutdowns, but now is in really, really dire shape. Cinemark is often attached to malls, so they're in a little bit better shape than the other three, but they're also, I think, the smallest of the big three. So if my theory that they're trying to tank particularly AMC so that the studios can then go to a friendly government with a Democratic administration and say, hey, can you lift the restriction on us owning both ends of the equation? Because right now they can't own theaters. They can't own the means of distribution and production. That's an antitrust thing. They could go to them and say, hey, we want to rescue the theater industry. Could we buy these? Or a Netflix or Amazon comes in and buys these movie theaters. Then I could see where they do it exclusively if they've got a stake in resurrecting the movie theater industry. I could see them doing this where it is an exclusive just to theaters and they split the gate. You see what I'm saying? Because they're now not competing with each other in the streaming space. It's a one-time thing. It's like, I think Fathom Events does singular events with Cinemark theaters, right? Concerts, operas, things like that. I think Glenn's movie on Common Core several years ago was a Fathom event, if I remember right, because I think we went and saw it. But if they could do it like that, and they had an interest in using it to resurrect the theater industry, to get people to come back, I could see it. Short of that, though, I think the streaming wars are going to prevent something like this because they get 100% of everything if they stream it. They get to keep both the means of production and distribution side of it. So that's why I'm going to sell. What are your thoughts on that?
Your answer makes me very angry. Not because it's flawed in its analysis, but it's like my frustration with we need instant replay in sports because gambling. These are answers that are ultimately, it's a secondary cause that has become an obsession, and it has no longer anything to do with the thing itself. I mean, I'm not sitting here advocating that we meld these universes together, but if the reason it won't happen is because of this, and if the reason a bad instant replay product won't happen because of that, again, I mean, it's just, we take our eye off the ball of the fundamentals.
You're right.
Over and over and over again. The answers to that, you are absolutely right in your analysis, but the reason those things are going to happen are the very opposite of the goodness that gave rise to what happened with this book yesterday.
Yeah, if it weren't for the Zack Snyder Justice League cut in Wonder Woman 1984, HBO Max would be a nothing. Similarly, The Mandalorian, and now that we're getting into the Marvel shows, I mean, most families have the vast majority of the Disney catalog in their homes already, right? It's been this new content from the Star Wars and MCU universes that's driving Disney Plus subscriptions. And it's the DC properties that's driving HBO Max. And so without theaters at full capacity, I don't know what financial incentive they have to break that model when they have a monopoly on it.
There's so many threads on this because there was a story I saw today about how, are people ever going to go back to church? To me, the public forums we are taking away and people being able to convince themselves that they can live a whole life in their living room. This is a toxic notion.
I agree with you. And I say this, I'm a homebody. Okay. I mean, I get accused because of where I'm at with the COVID pushback. I'm anti-science. You guys have been to my home. My home is an homage to the microchip. Okay. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, I love technology. Mm-hmm. That's just not true. But as much as I love my home theater set up in the basement and the man cave and everything else, guys, I mean, the energy level of being with other people opening weekend of Endgame a few years ago. Oh, and when Cap picks up the hammer, all right? And people in that IMAX theater, it was sold out every seat. People stood up and applauded. The energy, I just got the hair in the back of my neck stand up thinking of that. We were made, it's okay to want to be, somewhat want to be private, particularly if you have a public job like I do. My home is my chance to get away and just be a guy named Steve. But we were made for connection. We were made for a community. We are made in the image of a God who in and of himself is a relationship, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. To just act as if young men, Young men went from using porn as the substitute for a girl when we were growing up, in the substitute of a girl, like in anticipation of hopefully the real thing, to now it actually, I don't need a girl. I just get off on my own and don't have to do any of the rest of the things that required of a relationship. This idea that we can just do all of these things disconnected from one another. You're exactly right. It goes against the creative order. It goes against our own nature as creations.
It goes against the answer as us.
Yes, it does.
Because we keep thinking that's somebody else's issue, somebody else's problem. No, it's all of us, all the time.
I agree.
You never get out of that.
I agree. When we went to, Amy and I went and saw the movie Nobody last weekend, and it's a ton of fun, by the way. We were actually going to go to the local theater to give them our money first, because they also do a dine-in and they got good food. Every seat was sold out. We were pleased to see that. So we went over to the AMC theater here in town instead, and I mean, there were, for a Friday night, it wasn't what it used to be like, but to have 30, 40 people sitting there in the theater to watch the movie, I mean, could have seated, 300-400, but to have 30, 40 people, and it absolutely added to the enjoyment of it. No question about it. You bet.
Moving on, Emmanuel S. Millick says, Kamala Harris and Arthur Fleck laugh for the same reason.
Wow. Nice reference.
Bye.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to buy it too.
Different in degree, but same in kind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a clever observation. I'll buy. Yeah.
Next, Sean Griffith says, if one agrees with the premise that Trump's handling of COVID was the worst management decision ever, one must also admit that Trump's legacy must be viewed negatively overall.
I'm okay if you come to that conclusion. I mean, you're on the hook for the worst management decision of all time. Now, he couldn't make it singularly and didn't, but it couldn't have also been made without him either, right? So you can't pin it all on him, but you also wouldn't have pulled this off without him at the exact same time. So if you want to make, there's a logic conclusion there I agree with. Now, if you want to have a broader look and say, as terrible as that decision was, I like blank, blank, blank decisions, and those were important too, I think you could do that as well. But I don't think there's a flaw in your logic. People may disagree with your opinion and analysis. I don't agree with it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have voted for Trump in November. But I would not hold that perspective against anybody at all. Here's, in general, whether the name's Donald Trump or Kamala Harris or IP Freely, okay, you're the boss. You're reviewing your employees. You're welcome and entitled to any view of your employee you would like to have. You're welcome to hire, vote, or fire, vote against, not vote for any reasons you want. Now, if you ask me my opinion on your reasons, I won't criticize you for having those reasons. I may disagree with them, but I think you're the owner here. You're entitled. You say, because I said so, for any reason you want to, anything you want. Now, if you're asking me if this is logically consistent, the answer is yes, it is. Is it the only answer I think you could have? Well, obviously, I think the answer to that's no, which is why I voted the way I did in November. But I would not begrudge anybody for coming to that conclusion whatsoever.
Well, I will buy, and I do agree with it. But I also voted for Trump, and I don't apologize for it, because that's the situation we were in. And I think your analysis ultimately borne out what happened in this election, at the very least being close enough that malfeasance could overtake it. But I still voted for the guy because, listen, aren't you? Look what Steve talked about in his opening montage. He has feet of clay, giant feet of clay. So do all of us. But, Donald Trump wasn't a devil worshiper. And what you're seeing more and more on Aaron's montage is nothing short of devil worship. So, yeah, smoke them if you got them.
The chart that Aaron showed, was it Pew that had this?
Gallup.
Gallup, yeah. I'm sorry. Of church attendance in America. What you're going to note, all cultures, all, since Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, every human culture has either worshipped the one true God or idols. Every single one. Every single one. What you're seeing here is, as church attendance has been in decline in America, we have turned increasingly towards idolatry of country, the surge of what I would call an unhealthy nationalism, for example. I don't believe, I saw somebody who, I like their Twitter account, but I don't agree. I don't believe this, that we're not a nation of immigrants, that America is a nation of a very special people. We're not special. I agree, we're not a nation of immigrants. We're a nation of citizens. But see, this sort of sinful nationalism is what Israel fell into in the Bible, where they conflated that because God chose us, we're special, with we're special, so God chose us. That's a dangerous mistake. That's where you look at your prophets like Jeremiah and say to them, we don't have to repent. Look at our nationalistic relics. Look at our temple. There's that's an idolatry. Statism is an idolatry. The idea that the state can bring utopia, that the state is the ultimate arbiter of right and wrong. COVID, idolatry. The mask, idolatry. What you're seeing is the more and more we turn away from the God whom our rights comes from, the more and more we turn to idolatry. And this has been the truth of human civilization since Genesis 3. We will either worship the one true God, our creator, as a people, or we will worship idols. And then what happens when you fall into idolatry? That's where sectarianism, tribalism, strife kicks in, because now, hey, I want my idol worshipped, and my idol's better than yours. And idolatry doesn't bring people together. It tears them apart. Worship of the Creator is what brings people together. And you're watching this play itself out in American society today. More Buy, Sell, or Hold is next. And we're back with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Todd Erzin, Aaron McIntyre, and all of you. In case you missed it at the top, I won't get into all the mushy stuff again. All right. That already took up like 15 minutes of show. And I think by now you probably want me to actually start firing bombs on the events of the day. But I just wanted to reiterate again, thank you. You can go back if you're just tuning in. You want to go back and listen to the first hour, watch the first hour. I just can't thank you enough. It's incredible. I mean, I heard from some big names in our movement and industry yesterday who were like, wow, congrats, man. Never hit number one ever. For us to hit number one overall at Amazon.com with this book, Fauci and Bargain, couldn't have done it without you. And just want to reiterate, thank you, all of you. And let's keep the momentum going. You are sending a shot across the bow of COVIDstan. Keep firing bombs. And my inbox is a testimony. The amount of people now that want to have me on, that are calling about interviews and publicity. We haven't even started the publicity for the book yet. So you're making that happen as well. And thank you for choosing us to be one of your vehicles to fight back against Fauciism, the Branch Covidian cult, and the dumbest and worst management decision of all time. And should I go on? Thank you very much to all of you. All right. Don't forget to let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Steve@stevedeace.com is how you can email us. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. Look for Steve Deace on alternatives to those platforms like Gab, MeWe, and Parler too. YouTube.com/Steve Deace. We are out of YouTube jail, but we're kind of like an SEC football team. We're never off NCAA probation. We're just in between them. Okay, so we have a temporary reprieve from YouTube jail. So watch it now while you can, because it probably won't last much longer. At youtube.com/Steve Deace or rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. And of course, if you're a podcast listener, thank you. Please show that you appreciate our program by hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already. Leaving us a 5-star review if you haven't done that yet too, regardless of whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon, however you listen to the podcast. Thanks to all of you and the thousands of you that have left us those 5-star reviews already. Part 2 of Buy, Sell, or Hold, brought to you by one of our favorites around here, our friends over at Built Bar. Just had my noon Built Bar break with the chocolate chip cookie dough flavor. It's not often you get to use the words healthy and delicious in the same sentence together. So if you've been struggling to stay on the road to health, 80% of those who have been hospitalized or died with COVID-19 categorized as morbidly obese. All right, so listen, I get it. I'm not morbidly obese, but it wasn't long ago that I was. I'm still what would be considered overweight. All right, I had an old lady who has been listening to our show for 10 years, stopped me in the gym the other day, and she's like, wow, I could not do what you do. She's also, though, a lot thinner than me. I get the battle of the bulge. I live it all the time, okay? That's why I love Built Bar so much, because I've also got a sweet tooth, and it doesn't take much for me. I mean, I am like Elf. Sugar is a food group, okay? Todd, didn't you once tell me I have the palate of a 12-year-old boy?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So I get it, man. Aaron's laughing because it's true, man.
I just love Todd's. Yes.
Yes, he's disgusted.
Of course
at the
I
same
told
time.
you that.
Yeah, you did say that with a respectable level of disgust, and I love that about you. Yes.
I thought I made that clear.
Yes, but it is true. Thank the heavens for Built Bar. All right, the rare food, both healthy and delicious. It'll cure that sweet tooth. Each bar anywhere from 110 to 160 calories, up to 20 grams of protein, only 3 to 5 net carbs a bar. So whichever healthy lifestyle you're trying to live right now, Built Bar fits in. Over 20 flavors, all delicious, all covered in real chocolate. By the way, a little tip, remember that now, okay? Because we're getting into warmer weather again. If you're getting them delivered, remember, don't leave them out there on the front porch the whole time, because they are covered in real chocolate, all right? Get yours today, 15% off your next or first order when you go to BuiltBar.com, B-U-I-L-T, that's BuiltBar.com. Use the promo code DACE. Promo code DACE to get 15% off at BuiltBar.com. Let's continue with part 2 of Buy, Sell, or Hold.
We'll go next to Doc Brown, who comes up with this. If ever brought to a vote, 2 of the 4 listed quote-unquote Republican senators will vote to make vaccine passports legal.
Bye.
Romney, Murkowski, Collins, McConnell.
I'm going to sell because all 4 would.
Okay. Fair enough.
All 4 would.
See it.
And if we did it by a voice vote, where they didn't have to individually go on the record,
sure.
A lot more than those 4 would. Okay. So I'm selling because you've undersold it. All 4 of those individuals would, and they're not alone. Yes.
Moving on, we'll go next to 79 model Chris, who says Mount Rushmore of the most memorable Steven Spielberg blockbuster moments. Number 1, in no particular order, Jurassic Park, first appearance of T-Rex popping up from behind the fence.
Let's pause at that one for a second. 1993, when that film came out, I mean, we had seen some early versions of CGI. The first film that ever had CGI was the Genesis scene in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Remember a movie, The Last Starfighter?
Yeah.
That is a very that's an 80s sleeper charmer cult classic. It's a fun movie. And the story of the movie is there's this kid lives, out in a rural area, and he's mastered this video game. It turns out this video game is a recruitment tool for this intergalactic empire that's facing conquest from this evil conqueror. And so they've stationed this video game all over Earth to see who's got the reflexes to command their starfighters, and they come to recruit this kid, right? It's a great hook for a movie. That movie's special effects are almost all in CGI, and it looks like a dot matrix printer compared to what we see today. The CGI that you all take for granted today, its Genesis is the original Jurassic Park in 1993. Like we just had never seen anything like that before. And a lot of this was kept hidden from us in the trailers and stuff leading up to the film. You saw the eye of the T-Rex, but we didn't know about the Velociraptors or any of that stuff. Just watching that original movie with my kids again just a few years ago, it still holds up to this day. So I'm totally okay with that being on the list.
Me too.
Yeah.
Next, he has Raiders of the Lost Ark, Gun versus Sword.
Oh, gosh, I love this scene so much. I love it so much. I'm okay. So I've got to put it on there, but that movie, dude, there's 20 scenes in that movie we could put on this list. That's how great that movie is.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But this even got more iconic because of all the namby-pamby, like George Lucas taking out Han Solo and Greedo shooting first. And all that. And people start talking, was this mean that he shot the man with the sword? So it's even more iconic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jaws, you're going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah, that's good.
I am not a giant Jaws fan, but I understand that you can talk about that movie in the same way that Steve talked about Jurassic Park.
You have to put it on there. It launched the term summer blockbuster.
Yeah.
This is the film that launched that notion, that turned summer movie season into a thing. I mean, it made Universal Studios maybe the number 2 most popular amusement park in the country next to Disney, largely because of the Jaws ride there back in the day. Something Jaws has to be on there. So I'm totally fine with you're going to need a bigger boat. This is a good list so far.
Yeah. And then the final one that he has on there, E.T. flying bike in front of the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, who is that again?
79 Model Chris.
That is one of the best lists we've ever had. Maybe if we had more time to think about it, we could quibble with one or two, right? But off the top of our heads, I don't know that. I mean, that is a heck of a list, brother. You did a great job with that. Well done.
Yeah, and he's obviously had more somber movies, Schindler's List, Amistad. But, there's a narrative in there, not necessarily a classic scene that you draw. So
there's an underrated ride at Universal. Did you do this one where you ride the bikes on ET and you simulate that like a VR?
I didn't do that.
That's a very underrated ride.
Good.
Now I happen to think ET the movie, I always thought it was overrated. I know, and I'm probably wrong. I'm okay with it. I've tried to like it several times. I guess it's just I need Kirk in like a red cloak telling Khan to bite me. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I need Luke, laying down ordnance with a green lightsaber. The movie's just too charming. It's just, I need it a little bit more. All right. But the scene where they ride their bikes up into the moon, I mean, that's iconic. And getting to do that at Universal was pretty cool. Yeah.
Next, we've got Mini Bomber, who says witchcraft and sorcery will ride the coattails of this spirit of the age and become mainstream over the next few years.
I will buy that as forms of idolatry. I agree. Where we move beyond these things are elements of telling fantasy stories like in a J.R. Tolkien novel, for example, to, these are mainstreamed elements of, like, we go there not as a device in a story to get us from point A to point B to tell a higher truth, but that they are the higher truths in and of themselves. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So I will buy that because we're going to turn more and more towards idolatry. I agree.
Calvin McRae, if we do not strike any real and severe blows to the gender madness within the next year, current legislation being upheld, then within a decade it'll be illegal to preach, teach, or even mutter the gospel in the U.S.
I think that could happen even without the gender stuff. See, I don't think the gender stuff's going to cause that. It's the confirmation that it's happened. The reality is redefining marriage is what caused that. Because that was the point of the marriage amendments around the country. The points of the marriage amendments that were passed in 31 states around the country, including California, and with resounding majorities pretty much everywhere. The point wasn't to round up homosexuals who were in committed relationships. No one was in a jail cell anywhere in America for having a committed gay relationship or even going to some Unitarian church somewhere and being quote unquote married. That's not what it was about. It was about protecting what were pre-established and ordained legal protections in America, like the freedom and expression of religion. Why? Because every country in Europe and Canada that had already done this had already redefined a marriage. What we found, there was a guy, Roger Severino, I believe was his name. And back when, before they had been completely worked over by political correctness, he had done a white paper. Can't believe I remember that guy's name. Wow. He had done a white paper for Harvard Law. And it was on behalf of the Beckett Fund for Religious Liberty. they had charged him with, and this happened like right when in like 2006, right when I made the switch from sports to news talk, because I remember having him on my show to talk about this issue, and he was charged with the task of, is it true that if we expand the definition of marriage in America, does that automatically mean we're going to see an infringement upon the freedom of religion? And what he found in this piece he wrote for the JFK School of Government at Harvard for the Beckett Fund, this Roger Severino found that in every country on earth, in Canada and in Europe, because it's really only the West that's doing this, by the way. All right, only the West is having these conversations. Like nowhere else in the world are these conversations being had. All right, but everywhere else in the West where this had occurred, the next thing that had happened was the criminalization of religious speech that called homosexuality sinful. Everywhere. And it only just makes sense. It's physics. Two objects can't occupy the same space at the same time. And so if we have this moral ethic occupying this space, and it says to mainstream this in a society is immoral, and then you want to say that's no longer the case, well, they can't share that space, folks. One of them's got to get out of the way and move, right? So it's actually the redefinition of marriage that got us down this road. The gender stuff is just, like piling on. It's icing on a cake. The cake was already baked. So I don't think the gender thing is the fulcrum here. It's the lever here. The redefining marriage was the lever. This is just the next manifestation of that. So I'm going to sell.
I'm going to sell. This may happen, but it's not going to be the primary mover of this, and it has to do with what we've talked about on the show oftentimes about what happened with corporate America. The government does not have to do that. It might do it at the end as a default, like, well, and just kind of say, well, thanks for doing most of the heavy legwork, corporate America. Now we're going to codify this. But listen, you already have. Look at what we've been covering in terms of big tech, what they are already doing on this, forcing people underground, forcing people to shut up, forcing to be quiet, to hide the guy. So if the law comes, I have no problem seeing it coming, but it's also going to be, just kind of window dressing for the great fall of this country at the end. But most of it will be done by private entities.
Well said. Next, Christian Chamberlain says Rand Paul or Ted Cruz will filibuster in the Senate by reading Fauci and Bargain cover to cover.
Oh, wow.
Buy, because I need that to happen. Like Chris Christie buying French fries. What's
funny is I looked at a few of the endorsements on this book, two in particular with DeSantis and Cruz, and I texted a few people this morning. It just dawned on me, like, it's possible the next president of the United States' endorsement is on this book.
Yeah.
And all of them ended up texting me back, you already had a next president of the United States endorse one of your books. I just completely forgot that Trump had endorsed Rules for Patriots. All right. But that would be something for that to happen. Okay. And I'm going to buy just because for that exact same reason. I need that to happen too. Yes.
Brad Epley says COVID is a Chinese bioweapon that was released on purpose to hurt the U.S.
Buy.
I'm going to sell. I'm not I don't believe this is purely a mutation from bats that exist hundreds of miles, actually, and nest hundreds of miles from Wuhan, China. And they just happened to feast on some Wuhan meat, wet market food. And, we got Wuhan for luck, man. What do you expect in life, right? I don't believe that narrative whatsoever. But I want to see, because, folks, if this is true, you're looking at World War III. I don't believe we can win with our woke military, our complacent people, and at least a solid segment of the leadership structure of this country culturally wants us to look more like China anyway. So I want more. I'm perfectly fine saying there's enough prima facie evidence out there that the narrative we're being told from the WHO in China is bunk. But before I go to that next level, because of the consequences of what affirming that will mean, I want to make sure we've got, Zapruder film level evidence here of that. So I'm going to sell.
At the very least, in my mind, if it was not intentionally put out there, once it was out there, it was intentionally allowed to manifest itself as if it had. So there's really no practical difference. The Chinese saw The Dark Knight. Turns out madness is like gravity. All it takes is a little push.
That just, you know what? Can I comment on that?
Yep.
Please.
That's a disturbing point I had not considered.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm disturbing.
Is that at the very least they allowed this thing to distribute and make its way, even if it is a fully natural phenomenon, they at least allowed it to basically seep through and infiltrate the planet anyway. To a very dark place this goes.
I'm not just spitballing. I believe it.
And by the way, I'm not spitballing either. I don't believe we can win a conflict with China. I think too many people in positions of power want us to look like them, number one. And the level of woke and feminization in our own military on top of that, I just believe they would do things to win that we would not. And I'm not even talking about inhumane tactics like mustard gassing. I mean, I'm just talking about like fighting to actually win. I mean, I watched us not subdue parking lots in Afghanistan for 20 years, guys. We're not any more masculine meritocracy in our military now than we were in 2003, are we? I think we're a lot further down the road there, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
To G.I. Jane now?
Correct.
So I don't believe we could win.
Yeah, I don't think the Chinese army cares about pronouns.
I agree that they don't. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I'm not talking about like, throw out the Geneva Convention and let's fire up the mustard gas kind of stuff. I'm talking about resolve. Resolve is what I'm talking about. Before we even get to inhumane tactics to win, how about resolve to do so? I don't believe we could match their resolve. I don't.
The U.S. Army really would try the Star-Lord dance-off. They'd really actually go with that as their lead.
Now you're just... That just felt like you just kicked me right in the scrot, bro. You know why?
Because I know you're picking up what I'm laying down.
Because that's exactly right. I hear you knocking, and I'm coming in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Next up, Casey Berry says, things are cooling down too much. About time for another Rona variant.
Sell. I think I think the appetite for this, the CDC director's act on Monday was an act of weakness, begging, pleading. You've seen almost no mainstream media outlet pick that narrative up in the last 48 hours and like try to run with it. I saw Alex Berenson tweet yesterday. He was following what's the police officer's name in Minneapolis?
Derek Chauvin.
Derek Chauvin trial, thank you. He was following that on CNN because they were the network that had live coverage at the time. And he said it's the first time he's turned that network on in a year and there was no death count on there. So I just don't think the president pleading for more mask mandates didn't even generate much of a news cycle for 48 hours. I think this is virtue signaling now. Well, it's been virtue signaling, but I mean like, it's nothing more than that. You know what I'm saying? It's the point in and of it is virtue signaling, and I don't think it has any level of significance at all. So I just think the argument and the patience that the American people have for this has just run out on that level. Now when we get to the masks, prepare to be disappointed. Okay, but on the lockdown level, I think people are just like that was a cool summer. But Bananarama, but it was a cruel summer. But anyway, back to real life to some degree.
These people are shameless. They will keep trying it. They just throw stuff, see if it sticks, because they know that in many cases they won't be held accountable by anybody. But they'll also kind of, their strategies will change because they will realize the same things aren't working. So practically in the near term, I agree with Steve. But in the longer term, they will absolutely, the next phase of this will be turning this. It's funny, they matters as just a bad flu. Well, they will make sure that this turns into the bad flu for the rest of your life, cyclically. Why you need the vaccine?
Yes, that I can
that's
see.
coming. I promise you that.
Yeah, that's we've reached the stage where we won the invasion. I believe we've toppled Saddam's statue. Now comes the occupation, and that's what you're talking about. All right. How long can we maintain some level of occupation? Hey, you know what? We let the Iraqis vote. We let them open up their homes, businesses, try to get back to their real life. But they were clearly an occupied people with the military presence there, right?
Yeah.
At any point in time, we could walk into any home if we suspected a terrorist was in there and do whatever we had. That is what's coming next. That's what you're describing. And I agree
every
with that.
season for the flu, I mean, assault, got to get the flu. It's going to be that times 11. It's going to be a seasonal thing where you're a killer if you don't get this vaccine on a regular basis because of variants.
It's the overall sentiment that both of you are describing, which is why that book is very important and important for you to, I don't know, like somebody sent us this morning, put it in your Easter baskets that you're giving away. Up next, Robert Abate says the Big Ten gets no more than 6 bids to NCAA next year as a punishment for laying an egg this year.
Oh, I'll sell. I don't think they'll have anything to do with anything.
Yeah, sell.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, I know people that have served on the selection committee, chaired it, and they just, it's not that human nature isn't prevalent at all. Like, that's why I said a few weeks ago when Duke was making a mini little run, and then they ended up at the end, and then they ended up getting COVID and shutting their season down. But, you know, the bracketologists were like, Colorado State is in and Duke is the last 4 out. And I'm like, guys, in none of the 9 realms, if it comes down to Colorado State and Duke, is Colorado State getting in and Duke is not. That's, if anything, they will overlook what happened this year because they'd rather have those 9 brand names from the Big Ten in than Utah State as the 11th seed in the South. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, no, the opposite instinct is more likely to prevail. Sell.
You're selling as well, Tom?
I did, yes.
Next up, John Hensley says one of the few positive aspects of COVID and the 2020 election is that the realization of states have real power if they choose to use it.
Bye. You're seeing that now. We're doing things that we should have been doing 10 or 20 years ago. Ron DeSantis is doing things that pretty much every red state governor should be. What Ron DeSantis is really doing, if you wanted to philosophically describe what he is doing in Florida, is he is providing let's use the term variant. A variant of federalism. It's a militant federalism is what he is doing. It's an aggressive variant of federalism in that he doesn't just see his office as governor as putting the interest of the people of Florida first and foremost. He takes it to the next level. That's what federalism is, right? Okay. But he takes it to the next level and says, I also, therefore, as part of that charge, I need to protect my own people from the federal government. He goes next level with that, where it's not just like, I want us to protect our legacies, traditions, heritage as Floridians, the customs, the things, the quirks. That's my charge. Okay. But it goes next level. He's taking seriously the notion of what it means to protect against the Constitution, against all enemies, foreign and domestic. He is viewing himself and his office as a buffer of protection against federal tyranny. And I think it could be the only thing, if more, it can't be just him, but if more states will do this, it might be the only thing that ultimately holds the union together or stops us from plunging into the kind of thing that really I don't think any of us really want to see happen again.
How long have we been hearing from Republicans that the states are supposed to be laboratories of democracy? And they're right, they are. But then they go off to be, David French. And no. Ron DeSantis, it turns out he's Tony Stark in Age of Ultron. We're mad scientists, man. I mean, he's just all in.
Yeah, he is. And what's the motivation that Tony has in Age of Ultron? A hedge of protection around the earth.
That's my point.
Right? Yeah. I mean, that's what he is doing, is he is providing a hedge of protection around the state of Florida against the federal government. And this will get panned as, well, isn't that what segregationists did? No, what they wanted to do was protect their states from the Constitution, which banned slavery, which banned unequal protection under the law, things of that nature. He is doing the opposite. It's the federal government that wants to de facto abolish the Constitution. And he is the one saying, in this state, we will still live by the Constitution. I've used this before. Essentially, Ron DeSantis is saying to the federal government what Russell Crowe's Jor-El says to Michael Shannon's Zod in Man of Steel, when he urges Jor-El, Zod does, to join him in his mindless, nihilistic spirit of the age rebellion. And he says, I will honor the man you once were by not joining you. And that is what DeSantis is doing. He is looking at Washington and saying, I will honor the government you once were, the Constitution you once obeyed, by not joining with you on this nihilistic crusade. And I think it's refreshing and needs to be emulated across the country. It might be the only thing that stops us from plunging into sectarian disintegration, is for others to join up with him. That'll do it for Buy, Sell, or Hold. Daniel Horowitz, our prophet of woe and lamentation, will be joining us here next. Stay tuned. Trying to sell your home in any market environment, even in the best of times, can be challenging. That's why you need a real estate agent who's going to come in and take charge, but can also be trusted to deliver the results they're promising you, and can also be trusted to remember, hey, they're in charge of the process, but you're in charge of them. They work for you. In other words, you need a real estate agent you can trust, especially during these unprecedented times.
Bing.
Thank you. Where would you find such an agent? Well, thankfully, the name kind of says it all. realestateagentsitrust.com. The cool thing about this website is how it got started. I mean, this wasn't like on anybody's radar around here, but Glenn and some of his folks got tired of dealing with real estate agents who didn't come through. And they're like, where will we find some good real estate agents around the country? And turns out, with an audience as big as we reach on the Blaze, there's quite a few. Agents came forward and said, hey, refer your customers to us. And then they got this idea. Why don't we just build a network like this to help refer fellow patriots and travelers all across the country, so they also don't fall prey to the real estate agents that you can't trust. And that's why just about anywhere you want to buy or sell in the country, we can help you at realestateagentsitrust.com. Again, that's realestateagentsitrust.com. Let's get to the weekly prophet of woe and lamentation, Daniel Horowitz. Good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing all right, Steve. Congrats.
Thank you. I would imagine the success of Fauci and Bargan has encouraged somebody like you. I remember a few years ago when Shapiro really took off, I was encouraged by that because dude didn't kiss anybody's ass to get there. Did it of his own merit. And, you and I did this ongoing dialogue a few years ago about steak and Cheez-Its. Remember those conversations? Yeah, like, do our people still want solid food? And we have found out this week that to encourage people like you and me, the answer is yes. Yeah, they do still want. There still is a market for solid food out there, brother.
Steve, I think that's the most important thing here, commensurate with how important an issue is and how much the left is destroying our life with it. That's how much it creates a vacuum for pushback, for alternatives. Hey, what's the truth about the virus? Where is it really coming from? How does it behave? What truly stops it? What works against it? I mean, I think we've both seen before your book that whether it's a show, whether it's a column, whether it's an article, anything that delves into or tries to ascertain some degree of truth about the virus did better than anything you and I have ever talked about, written about in our careers. So I think we've seen that all year. People are starving for it. It's just a shame we don't have a political party to dish it out.
So what do you think of the gaslighting that's going on right now? You have the CNN documentary that has Birx and Redfield and Fauci in it, and they're condemning Scott Atlas. He went on Fox News last night. And for those of us that have gotten to know Scott, we're some of the first people to introduce him to audiences and interview him, as you and I both were. All this time, he's like, when we get public, I want to be extraordinarily cautious. I don't want to make it personal. I just want to rely on science. I want to rise above the politics. And this is how he was repaid with a level of gaslighting, from some of his former peers. And last night on Fox, on Laura Ingram's show, that's the closest I've seen him just go off. If anything, though, I still think he was too diplomatic. But as watching this take place now, this rehabilitation tour of Debbie Birx ever since she got caught visiting her folks over Thanksgiving, not to mention she unleashed she's the one who brought us the IHME model that enslaved the country and was wrong. Now she's on I think she joined like the George W. Bush Presidential Museum or something. Now they're trying to rehabilitate her image. What's your view of this now? It seems to me like they're trying to move out of the lockdown narrative and then gaslight us on the way out the door. What do you think?
Well, I think they're trying to distract. I don't think they're moving out of it. I think they're continuing it, but they're continuing it by distracting the narrative. And it's very smart. One of the smartest things that Rush Limbaugh ever said was his observation how the left operates like drive-by shooters. And they shoot a bunch of bullets, create mayhem and chaos in a certain area, and then before you could get your bearings, they're down the road onto the next thing. And that's what they're doing now, because the problem is they could never sit on any one data point. You see, Steve, we've all forgotten 12 months later, whatever happened to alleviating the burden on hospitals, right? I mean, we were once upon a time living a normal life, and once upon a time, it wasn't normal for a government to do this. The government couldn't do this to you just because let's say you legitimately have a pandemic. Okay, so what? So treat the pandemic. So treat the people who are sick. You don't just lock everyone down. You don't make them wear masks. That never happened before. And the way they got that off the ground was saying we can't have a run on the hospitals. Well, not aside from the fact that we never did, but people were scared because we were going from 0%. 0% of the people were infected a year ago, or almost a little bit more than 0, but very few people. Well, Steve, now we have 45% seroprevalence in some places. Then we have all the people who are vaccinated, and we're told it has a 94% efficacy. So what more is there to talk about? Meaning, even if you have more cases here and there, how could you ever come to a point where hospitals could be overrun? The entire thing's a lie. Mm-hmm. So that's why they have to keep reinventing the narrative and keep making this about some specific point that has nothing to do with the meat and potatoes of the issue, which is you told us hospitals couldn't be overrun, slow it down, and yet you have now actualized the very spread that you said we were going to avoid by doing everything that you had us do and continue to do, except now we have all the collateral damage with it.
How much, because I will admit, I've not done that much. I've actually sat back and just tried to watch in real time, and I see people whose opinions I respect are at completely opposite views of this. But I'm getting a lot of questions, so let me ask you. How much have you turned your attention to researching the safety and efficacy of the vaccination effort?
Not much, Steve, because until now, I felt we had to fight for life, liberty, and property.
Agreed.
So to me, when you have something that's optional and you have something that's mandatory, I'm going to focus on what's mandatory, the masks, the lockdowns. And not only that,
that's been my view up until now as well. But now we're talking vaccine passports. So now I kind of feel like we kind of got to lump that in with everything else now, right?
We got to delve into it. And Steve, I think this discussion cannot be embarked upon without discussing hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and some of the cocktails of treating this virus early. Because we literally live in a country now where you can go anywhere you want and get your balls cut off. You could get a castration procedure, as well as mutilation, hormone therapy, puberty blockers, but you cannot get a prescription for ivermectin from many doctors and hospitals to treat COVID early, when today the update from the meta-analysis of the WHO pooled studies is that it has an 81% reduction in fatality. I mean, even their own lying mannequin data from the CDC on masks is what it's like, reduces the spread by 1.6% or something.
1 or 2%, right? Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. 81%. The thing costs nothing. It's been dispensed 4 billion times. No problems with it when
if they remarketed it and called it remdesivir, would we be able to go ahead and buy it again? Do you think, or?
Yeah, as long as you pay $3,000 for it, and that kind of makes it kosher. It's the kosher certification that the $3,000 a pop is going into the pockets of because that's really the danger there. Just to flatten that, you got to flatten that curve. But Steve, they are treating stuff that's been around since the 70s that has proven to work, like experimental stuff. And then the stuff that they had to authorize under experimental use, emergency use authorization, because it's an mRNA gene therapy that really hasn't been tried before. And when it was tried in other mammals, when they were developing this for SARS-1, some pretty nasty results occurred from that. I'm not saying they didn't fix it with the trillions of dollars that were pumped into it, but that's the point. If they lied to us about early therapeutics, if they lied to us about masks, they lied to us about lockdowns, they lied about everything.
Exactly.
How are we supposed to trust them?
I agree.
Now, I think it's pretty hard for them to get away with zero efficacy and 100% of people dropping dead. I'm not saying that's the result. I think it probably is pretty effective. I really wonder if it's 94%, but we'll find out. But what about 6 to 12 months from now? Mm-hmm. What sort of long-term effects are there from this? I will
This is why I've said to my audience, number one, if you're not in a high-risk group, morbidly obese, diabetic, or elderly, or some other autoimmune deficiency, why are you in a hurry to get this? Get out of the way. Let the most, this is what Florida has done, prioritizing seniors, right? Get out of the way and let the most vulnerable populations who have a higher risk of COVID than they do side effects of these vaccines, let them be the test group, because, and first of all, they're more at risk than you are anyway. And then just sit back and observe in real time, because the studies, they don't include this group, they do this group. Who knows what's in the studies? Just observe in real. Studies told us that 6 feet of social distancing would work too. All right. Just observe in real time what we see in these vulnerable populations, and then we make a decision from there. What's wrong with that strategy?
Well, there were also their own self-policed studies that were, by the way, conducted overseas. So they said that ivermectin can't be approved for off-label use here because the studies came from overseas. Well, it's funny, that wasn't a problem with the vaccine.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, but again, we're just supposed to trust it. Now, I think you and I, much to the chagrin of a large chunk of our audiences, I think are, we're not anti-vaccine inherently. I've had all my vaccines. My kids have had them. I have nothing inherently against vaccines, although I really don't think, by their own admission, this is a traditional vaccine. But again, Steve, if I were in my 80s and I were really worried about this, there are doctors that have actually studied medicine rather than politics, and studied science rather than political science. And 12 months later, I mean, Steve, there's no mystery as to how this virus behaves. We see it coming a mile away. I would be taking their cocktails. It's just what I don't know is what sort of mix with it, at what time, at what symptom, making sure they don't react with each other. That's what we need doctors for. But the biggest scandal is that the NIH stopped their research into early therapeutics in May, right when they knew they would be able to get to the end zone, and they dove head first with the vaccine. That's what really concerns me here. How we know they will lie and have people die for control and for cronyism.
If this wasn't purposefully done to have these cutting edge pharmaceuticals that receive trillions of dollars in funding, we're going to boost people's share prices, in the 100th percentile. And so in order to accomplish those things and justify them, we had to besmirch and defame established and treatable other treatable options that were far less expensive in order to create the market for these cutting edge, more expensive pharmaceuticals. If they weren't doing that intentionally, what would they have done differently?
Steve, I don't know.
Nothing.
I mean,
nothing's the answer.
I don't know how you. I don't know how you could have killed more people. I think one mistake that I made from a year ago, but it was understandable. I think we've been pretty accurate on most of what we've said. Is that, to me, I do think this virus is a little bit more potentially problematic. Maybe not so much from a lethality standpoint, but having a pretty rough go at it than maybe I thought. Not that much more. But it makes what we were saying all the more important. Because let's say the virus was just a complete nothing. So then you just have the collateral damage, which is significant. But what's a bigger crime against humanity is there is an element of this virus that could be problematic, that it induces this inflammatory reaction called cytokine storm. We know about it. We understand how to treat it. And people to this day, I had a listener that had a parent get the vaccine, by the way, and then tested positive and now has fever. And he was emailing me. I'm not a doctor. He's like, dude, what do I do? I'm like, well, she's elderly. She's got a fever. Hopefully it can and will stop at that. But why roll the dice? Mm-hmm. So I called some of the doctors that I've had on my show to get the guy hooked up with ivermectin and some of this stuff. The doctor won't prescribe it. I mean, how are we 12 months later?
Yeah. See, if I could, a year later, if I could do anything differently, I'd have fought harder on the hydroxychloroquine front. And the only reason I didn't is because I hadn't still come to the conclusion yet that literally none of these institutions could be trusted. I remember the Lancet study that came out, which was the largest study that showed that it didn't work. And I was like, well, I guess it doesn't work. And then a month later, when they had to retract that study for being complete total bunk, that's when I knew, you know what? Everything's a scam. Nothing,
they will literally let people die.
Nothing. Yeah, they will. They will let people die. Nothing could be trusted. If I had to do the last 12 months over again, April and May, I'd have fought harder on the hydroxychloroquine front. And I just largely let that sit aside and thought it was outside of my knowledge jurisdiction to render a verdict on that. That's what I would have done differently.
That was part of the problem. You and I could analyze data. I don't know the best things, how to treat inflammatory and antiviral qualities and what works and what doesn't. And I think most doctors, frankly, don't either. And they drink out of the same pipeline.
They're getting the same information source from the same corrupted mouth of the river. Exactly.
And they're scared. They're scared. And now we're finding with ivermectin, it was batting 49 for 49 with studies, stronger data than on hydroxy and a window of working even later in the inflammatory reaction than hydroxy. And now there was something from Argentina they concocted that it doesn't work. And it turns out that the placebo group and the trial group were the same. They both took ivermectin, which is why you didn't see a greater response. So they're pushing to have that retracted from JAMA now too. I mean, the entire thing is screwed up. So coming back to vaccines, why should we trust them?
That's the question. That's exactly right. Yes. That's exactly right. Good to see you as always, my friend. Take care.
Take care. Looking forward to having you on, Steve.
Yeah, going to be on Friday. That's right. Thank you for reminding me. Going to be on Daniel's podcast on Friday. We'll see you then, brother. Take care. All right, gentlemen, thoughts on that conversation?
We've come full circle to the top of the show where you started talking about the book and COVID, but then what's next? And what's always present on our show, BLM and gender. That's when Daniel said at the end, it's not, what he said is not remotely hyperbolic. They will let people die. These people don't care. They don't care about hydroxychloroquine and whether it works or not. They don't care about if a black crime in the streets and who's killing who then. They don't care about transgendered, mentally ill kids maiming themselves. They don't care. They will let you die.
And on this particular issue with hydroxy and a specific treatment, I just didn't give myself permission to go there yet. That's what I would have done over again. Because now it is apparent that they will do those things. You're right. Tomorrow, after Glenn Beck, noon to 2 Eastern, right here on Blaze TV. Until then, John 3:17.